Hi everyone, today I want to share with you 10 tips that I have for musicians applying to grad school. I did my Bachelor of Music in Viola Performance and I'm currently in my second year of my Master of Music also in Viola Performance. So I'm coming from a performance background, which is what these tips are kind of geared towards. But if you're doing a different branch of music, like music therapy, music ed, musicology, any of that, the requirements are going to be similar, a little bit different, but these tips will still most likely apply to you, so it's definitely worth watching. This video corresponds with a blog post that I wrote last fall, just a year after I applied. So the blog post is geared more towards applying in a normal year, and this video will be geared more towards applying in 2020, which is a very different year than when I applied in 2018. But I'm sure the blog post will still be helpful if you want to come back and refer to some of the tips and advice that I give in this video. Most of it will be in that blog post, so it's definitely worth the read. I hope you check it out. It's on my website, lifefromtheviolasection.com, which I will link down below so that you can go check it out and follow it. Pin my things on Pinterest so that you can save them for later. I love doing that. So let's go ahead and get into my tips. My first tip is to make a list and look up any and every school that interests you. Even schools that don't interest you, look them up. See what the application requirements are, see what the audition requirements are. Just get a feel for what classes they'll require and who the teachers are, maybe what notable alumni have done, see if any of that interests you. Just knowing what's out there is really going to help you narrow down your search later on. Talk to someone that you trust, like your teacher or a mentor or friends, family, anyone who might have advice for schools that you can go to, and look up every school that they tell you. Even if you're not interested, again, just getting an idea and a feel for what's out there and what your options are and maybe what you want and what you don't want. That's all important to know when you're choosing a school. My second piece of advice is to make a spreadsheet. This saved me. So I created a spreadsheet on Google Sheets just so that I could have it with me anywhere. If I was in a lesson and my teacher wanted to know when something was due or what the specific audition requirements were, I could just whip out my phone and tell her right away, and it was super easy. So I will show you my spreadsheet right now. So this is my spreadsheet that I made for grad schools. When I made this, I had no idea that I would have a YouTube channel or that I would be sharing this with anyone other than like my family and my teacher. So it's kind of weird sharing this. So this is it. These are the schools I ended up applying to and auditioning at. And then over on the right-hand side are schools that I applied to but either didn't pass the pre-screening or I just didn't end up auditioning there for whatever reason. And then this one I ended up not applying to. I filled out an application, but I didn't go through with it. So I'm going to focus on these because this is where I auditioned, that I was more interested in. Obviously, these are the schools, and over here are different details that I was interested in remembering. So first I have the location. I just wrote where the school's located, the date the applications were due, and then once I finished, I wrote submitted because I felt really good about it. If they had a priority deadline, the application fee, it's expensive. Yeah, I hate it. And then what they want in your application. So these are the application materials. So let's take a look at Stony Brook. It was an application fee, which is $100, statement of purpose, which is why you want to go to grad school, your resume, letters of recommendation, transcripts. You send them an unofficial one online, and then generally after you're accepted and you choose that you want to go there, then you have to mail them the official transcript and a writing sample, so like an essay you've written in the past few years. And then I just made a note of where, like the website that you apply on. And those are generally pretty much the same. For Heart, I believe I had to turn in a repertoire list. Maybe it was somewhere else. But I know at one point, I think my teacher asked for one, but it wasn't like officially part of the application materials. And then here I have the price of tuition, which, isn't really accurate, but just so that I could have an idea. And then, if I was offered scholarship money, I could come back to this and see like, okay, how much would that scholarship money cover? And then here I wrote the degree that I would be interested in getting, mostly Master of Music. Next I have if there's a pre-screening, these schools did, and then if they did have them, what the requirements were. So for New England Conservatory, It was prelude and any dance movement from a Bach cello suite or two contrasting movements from a Bach solo violin sonata or partita, a major movement of a concerto, and one complete sonata performed with piano. So that was basically my entire senior recital. Okay, and then next I wrote down the audition dates that they offered for my instrument. Then below I have the audition requirements for each school. I applied to schools that had basically the same audition requirements. University of Maryland was the only one that was a little different. This one required 3 standard orchestral excerpts. So I just learned 3 orchestral excerpts in addition to what I was already doing. Below audition requirements, I have if an accompanist is required. And then here I have the viola professors at the schools. Then here I have the ensemble in residence. If there was a string quartet in residence at the school, then I put that there because I'm very interested in chamber music. So having an ensemble in residence was something that I was interested in. Here I have the number of recommendation letters. Generally it's 3, sometimes it's 2. And then here I wrote if they said when you would hear results by. Typically it's around the middle of March. Here I had the link to apply, which was very helpful, and looking back on it, I wish I had included more links in the spreadsheet. It would have made it a little more organized because I was always Googling like the school website and trying to find, just certain information that I didn't have on the spreadsheet. But, cater it to your own needs. You know what you need to know. So here and below, I just have other general notes. And below I put in my logins, but I blacked it out because I don't want you guys to hack me. So having the login information in the spreadsheet was super helpful for me when I would apply and then leave, and then I'd come back and I'd have to remember my login information. So I didn't have to keep it in my brain, I didn't have to keep it in my phone. It was just right here because I always had the spreadsheet open when I was working on my applications just because it has all of the information that I needed. So that's my whole spreadsheet. It was so helpful for me. I cannot state that enough. Just make something visual for yourself to see all of these important pieces of information that you need to know. Just seeing it in one place and being able to compare and contrast was so helpful for me, and I think anyone can benefit from that. Okay, number 3, look at what classes are offered at each school. So this comes down to knowing what you want to learn and what you want to do after school. You want to make sure that whatever school you choose prepares you for the real world, because so many music schools will teach you about music theory, music history, and how to play, but they won't teach you about how to be a musician out in the world and how to make a living and how to do your taxes and just all of those things that we need to know. So see if they have any like building a career classes or pedagogy classes. Anything that you're interested in, see if they have classes that sound exciting to you, or maybe you mostly want to perform and you don't want many academic classes. See what those course loads are like. Are they academically heavy? Are they light on academics and high on performing? Or vice versa, if you want to do theory or history, how academically heavy are those, and will you have to perform much? Just getting an idea of what your life would be like if you went there will really, really help you narrow down your decision. So my 4th tip is probably pretty obvious, but it is look at the audition requirements for each and every school, even schools that you're not interested in, just so that you can get an idea of kind of what across the board are the audition requirements for your instrument. So what I did was I actually had my senior recital in December, and I performed my audition music for that recital. I did a movement of Bach, I did a prelude, and then I ended up auditioning with 2 other movements, and then I did the entire Walton Viola Concerto with a pianist, and then Hindemith Opus 11 number 4 with a pianist. So that was my entire program. It lasted an hour, and it was everything that I had to do for my audition. So I got good performance experience with it, and I knew that I could perform it somewhat reliably, which is very important when you go to the audition. Just knowing that, like, okay, I've performed this before, I've done it once, I can do it again. It really helped me a lot to kind of create a hard deadline for myself to learn that music by. And then I had a little over a month to keep perfecting it and getting it even better for my auditions. So that deadline was a really great thing for me to do, and I highly suggest it for anyone who has that option. Even if you don't do your required senior recital or whatever you might have in December, even just having a recital for your friends and family, putting something together, some kind of mock audition maybe for yourself about a month before the auditions will really, really help you. It will help your mindset, and it will just help you feel more prepared, more ready, more grounded when you're actually in the audition. My fifth tip is to think about what location you want to be in, where you want to be. So this specifically is like, what part of the world do you want to be in? Do you want to stay in your country? Do you want to go to a different one? Do you want to stay super close to home? Do you want to go a few hours away? Is there a specific part of the country or countries that you want to be in? Think about that. And of course, like I said earlier, and like I'm driving in, look at every single school you can think of. Just look at their requirements, look at their teachers, all of that. I already said it, you already know. but just looking at locations is very important because you want to be happy with where you're living for about 2 years or so. For me, location was a big factor. I didn't want to be too far away from home, but I wanted to be sure that I could go somewhere that gave me the opportunities and the education that I wanted. Of course, this year most auditions are going to be online, so you can't check out the location while you're there, which is probably very difficult. Virtual auditions kind of open it up so that if you couldn't afford to travel to a certain place, you can now audition to that school, and that's awesome. That's an awesome opportunity that you have, and I hope that virtual auditions become more standard just so that we can all have more opportunities without spending money, because as musicians we don't have a lot of money to just go travel and audition because it's so risky, you know? So virtual auditions can widen your opportunity for schools that you can go to, and you can really use that to your advantage if that's something that you're interested in. My next piece of advice kind of goes off the last one. So what is the area like of schools that you're looking at? And normally you would be able to check out the area when you audition, but with virtual auditions you likely won't get that chance. Some schools are letting you tour the campus once you're accepted. So like I said, it's very important that you're happy with where you're living for 2 or so years, however many years it takes you to do your degree. And you know, there's always the opportunity that you might stay there and you might work there later on. So you want to be happy with the area that you choose. Are you interested in living in a city, the suburbs? You know, what kind of area do you want to live in? Where do you see yourself being comfortable? What would be outside your comfort zone? Do you want to live outside your comfort zone? Do you want to stay in your comfort zone? All of it's valid. It's just things that you have to think about. So I knew that I didn't really want to be in the city. One thing to think about is if you find a teacher at a school in a location that you don't like, see if they teach anywhere else, because there was a teacher I was interested in studying with who teaches at a school in New York City. So I looked him up, and he also teaches at a school outside of the city. So I applied at that school instead of the city school because I knew that I wouldn't want to be in that location. As awesome of a location as that is, I knew it just wasn't quite right for me. So the one outside of the city was what I ended up applying to. To get an idea of the area, you can always contact the teacher and see if the teacher has any students you could talk to about what the area is like and just any questions that you have about the school. People are usually happy to talk about it and just give you advice, at least from my experience. And you know, I'm always happy to give people advice. That's why I'm making this video. So don't be afraid to reach out, even though it's very scary. I know from experience it's scary to actually reach out to people, but if you're really interested, it will really greatly help you. My 7th tip is to make pre-screening recordings early, like as early as you can. So for me, all of my applications were due December 1st, and so pre-screening auditions were also due that day. So I ended up making my recordings about a week before they were due, I think, and I only set aside one evening to do them in, and I really wish I hadn't. I suggest kind of scheduling multiple recording sessions. That can get complicated with a pianist, but ultimately it's more rehearsal time for the two of you. It's more time to just work on your music. Even if you don't get a good recording, at least you're still learning, you're still practicing. It's all important. But if you schedule multiple recording sessions, you're less likely to be as stressed at each one as you would be if you just had one session, because if you just have one session, you're thinking, oh, this is the only day I can do this. I have to get this right today. It has to be perfect. If I'm not happy with it, I don't know what I'm going to do. So if you have like 4 or 5 different sessions, you can think, okay, I have some freedom with this one. If I make some mistakes, I've got next week, tomorrow, whenever. You know, you can breathe and relax a little bit, and that will help your music making. My 8th piece of advice is to get a lesson with your potential teacher or teachers. So the nice thing about what's going on this year is that we're all kind of used to giving and teaching virtual lessons now. So it's a lot easier to ask a teacher to give you a trial virtual lesson now than it was a few years ago when, we were used to only doing things in person. So, basically all of us use Zoom now. We know how to work the audio so that we can sound good. So traveling isn't an issue anymore with getting trial lessons, especially now when we don't want to travel. So use that to your advantage. Reach out to teachers that you're interested in and ask if they could give you a lesson so that you can see if you're compatible with each other, because your teacher is a very, very, very important part of your experience at grad school. Because if you're doing performance like me, that's who you're learning from most of the time. You want to make sure that you like them and you like their style of teaching and that you like the way they play. So look up recordings of your teacher too. See if you like the way they play, because even though I think that as master's students, teachers should not try to shape you to sound like them, they should shape your own playing and help you develop your own sound. Many teachers teach what they know and what they do. So it's kind of inevitable that they'll teach you to try to sound like what they sound like. So what I did was I had lessons after my auditions. I liked doing that because I felt like I could kind of redeem my audition afterwards. The teachers could ask me questions like, why did you do this? Or what was your reasoning for this? And I could explain it to them, whereas otherwise they just have to wonder if I did something intentionally or not. And I don't know, it helped me loosen up after my audition, mainly because the teachers were very friendly to me after my auditions and I felt welcomed and it was just very nice. But that's probably not really an option this year, 2020 to 2021. But if you're watching this later on and things have opened back up again and we're traveling for auditions, then you can always try that. Okay, my 9th tip is to start your applications early, like as early as possible. Start with the easy sections of the applications, which are like your name, your address, your schooling, those basic information kind of things. They're easy, they're tedious, but you don't have to think too hard. So I did those when I was bored in class, but it saved me a lot of time because otherwise I would have just sat there or gone on Facebook. But instead I was just filling out these like basic mundane sections on the applications. And if you're doing it while you're multitasking like that, then it saves you time, and you can even apply for schools that you're not entirely sure about. Like, at least you've started the application, so if you do decide, it's less work later on. You've at least got those basics in there, and you just have to plug in like the essays and repertoire list, whatever else they require. So like I said before, most of my applications were due December 1st, and I ended up leaving the bulk of my applications until the day before. Last 2 days before. I do not recommend this at all. It was so stressful, and it was a pretty miserable day of just sitting on the couch with my laptop, just hoping that my pre-screening videos would upload by midnight. If you have your pre-screening videos, if you have them like a week before, even more than that, upload them as soon as they're done so that you know that you don't have to wait and you don't have to worry, is this going to upload before midnight? Am I going to turn this in late? Are they not going to accept it? Get it out of the way, just get it done, put that on the website. It's going to stay there on their servers. Like, just get that done as soon as you can. If you do your applications early but not turn them in, then you have time to think, okay, do I really want to apply to this school? Because application fees are expensive and I hate it. So, you want to find the balance of applying to enough schools that you have a good chance of getting into at least one, and not too many so that you don't go entirely broke. If you finish the application early, then you have a few days or however long to think like, okay, do I really, really want to go to this school? Do I want to apply to this school instead? You have that time that you can keep thinking about it and then turn it in like the day that it's due. Just giving yourself some extra time to think without the worry of, I have to get this application done, I have to do it. And even if you took the time to fill out the application and you decide you don't want to go there, don't apply there, because if you would say no even if you got accepted, then it's not worth spending the money just to apply there. My last piece of advice is to narrow down your list of schools, at least towards the end when you're doing your applications. This is a tricky balance because you want to make sure you apply to enough schools that you feel like you have a good chance of getting into at least one or two, and not so many that you can't afford all of the application fees and that you're not too overwhelmed. There are so many audition dates, it might all conflict, and what if you have concerts? You know, it's a lot when you're applying to a lot of schools. For me, I applied to 7 schools. I didn't make it past 2 of the pre-screenings. I decided not to audition at 1. I auditioned in person at 3, and I submitted a recording to 1 school. And then I ended up getting into 2 schools, one that I auditioned live at and one that I sent in a recording to. So out of 7, I got into 2. You know, it's tricky and it's scary and it's anxiety inducing. So, you know, narrowing down that list to schools that you're really, really interested in will help you, because if you're not really interested in a school, how likely are you to actually go to the audition? Or, I mean, I guess it's virtual now, so the audition is probably a lot easier to go to because it's most likely just logging onto Zoom, which we're all used to by now. Alright, so those are my 10 tips for musicians applying to grad schools. Please let me know down in the comments if you have any other tips yourself. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them and give you advice. DM me on Instagram if you need private advice or anything. I'm happy to help. Give this video a like if you find it helpful, and I hope all of your applications go well and that you get accepted to your dream school. Thank you for watching.